Who am I? What is this I? In other words, who am I? Do we not all generally say, I? I? What do we refer to when we say so? If we are asked what we mean when we say the word I, we shall have to admit that we have not yet found the correct answer to this question. Why? Because whenever we say I, we refer only to our body. Is not a name given to the body? We generally take that name as the name of that particular person. If that person is asked, "Who are you?" he replies, "I am Rama." If someone calls Rama, only that person looks back. Since other bodies have other names, only this body is to be taken as Rama. Therefore, the name denotes the body. Because he believes that he is the body, he feels that he is Rama and no one else. Are there not many more occasions in which we behave as if we were only this body? Therefore, it is clear that each one of us is convinced that the body is I. But if we approach a person, point out his hand and ask, "What is this?" quick comes his reply, "This is my hand." Similarly, when we ask about each part of his body, he says, "This is my leg, this is my stomach, this is my chest, this is my back, this is my head," and so on and so forth. Thus, he will ultimately have admitted, "This whole body is mine." When he says that it is his body, it now becomes evident that the body is just a possession of his, that is, that he is the possessor of a possession, the body. If so, can he be the body, his possession? Is he not the possessor of it? If he is further questioned, if this body is only your possession, who are you, its possessor? Can you be this body? Can a possession be its own possessor? He now admits that he is not the body, but that the body is merely his possession. The same person who, a short while ago, when addressed by the name of his body, claimed, "I am indeed this body," now himself admits, "I am not this body, it is only my possession." In the same manner, he also refers to his mind. "My thoughts are like this, my mind is like that." Therefore, how can he be either the mind or the body, which are only his possessions? What do we learn from all this? No one yet knows what he really is. Man, who is still in doubt, being unable to know what he really is, even though he is the nearest and dearest to himself, is trying hard to know so many far-away things in the world. Nothing could be more ridiculous. When even the knowledge of his own self is full of confusion and unsolved doubts, is there any wonder that his knowledge about various other things, world and God, acquired by the mind through study, hearing, and experience, is also riddled with doubts? How can a man who does not know even the color of the glasses he is wearing decide the correct color of other things by looking through those colored glasses? Similarly, however learned, rich, or powerful he may be, if a man has no clear knowledge of what he really is, all his learning, greatness, and power are merely fictitious. Hence, the first lesson to be learned is about one's own self. Let us therefore pursue the inquiry, who am I? Although some people will accept from the scrutiny made above that they cannot be this insentient body, yet, since they are not able to know correctly the true nature of I, they still think that I is the sum total of the body, the five senses, mind and breath, prana, 19. The word prana does not only mean the breathing process in the lungs, but it also includes the complete metabolism in the body. Therefore, we must clearly know what this I is without the slightest doubt or wrong identification, that is, without mistaking one thing to be another. It is not enough if one accepts that one is not the body, a mere mass of flesh. By observing the processes of breathing and blood circulation, which continue even though the body is lying down quietly, some may think that the prana is perhaps I. Is there any test that we can use to determine a particular thing as not I? Yes, there is. The test is to find out, do we exist or not in the absence of that particular thing? By using this test, we can proceed successfully to the very end of our inquiry. The wrong identification, I am the body, is itself all of these. Mind, manas; intellect, buddhi; the storehouse of tendencies, chittam; ego, ahankara; wrong knowledge, ajnana; nescience, sunya; maya, and so on. The prana is a gross form of this mind, and so is the physical body. Even the mind is a body, but a subtle one. Prana is a little grosser than mind, and the body of flesh and blood is still grosser than the prana. The subtle mind in its subtler form is itself the tendencies, vasanas, or the darkness of ignorance. Let us classify all these forms of the mind into three categories, namely the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. The five sheaths kosas are classified into these three bodies, sariras, as follows. 1. The physical body that grows from food, annamaya kosa, and the breath or prana, pranamaya kosa, form the gross body, stula sarira. 2. The mind, manomaya kosa, and the intellect or buddhi, vijnanamaya kosa, form the subtle body, sukshma sarira. And 3. The nothingness of sleep where happiness prevails, anandamaya kosa, forms the causal body, karana sarira. The following verse may be noted here. The body is a form of five sheaths, so the term body includes all the five sheaths. Does the world exist apart from the body? Say, is there anyone who without the body has seen the world? Uladhu narpadu, verse 5. All the gross forms, the body, blood circulation, and respiration, which are cognized by the mind through the five senses, constituting the gross body. This is because all these are clearly cognized by the mind, the subtle body, which is the second in our classification. Though the sastras usually include pranamaya kosa in the category of subtle body, we have here included it in the category of gross body, because it is clearly perceived by the mind as an object other than the mind, and since this will help us a great deal in applying our test. Moreover, since all these five sheaths are finally to be discarded as not I, non-self, no man with a little common sense will object to its being included with either of those two bodies. Now, by using the simple test mentioned above, let us see if we are this gross body. This is what Sri Bhagavan actually meant when he said in Who Am I? It is useless to scrutinize or to argue about the classification of the garbage, all of which is to be thrown away in one stroke. In deep sleep, we are not conscious of this gross body. What do we infer from this? Is it not obvious that we can exist without this mass of flesh? Some used to argue with Sri Bhagavan, the body does not cease to exist in deep sleep. Although in deep sleep a man may not be conscious of the existence of the body, nor of the movements of the breath and blood circulation in it, yet these are perceived by others who are awake. But the verdict of Sri Bhagavan, the truth knower, Mahanubhavi, is quite contrary to this. According to him, in deep sleep the body and the world do not exist, yet one's own existence, I am, is experienced by one and all. The picture, that is, the body and world, rises only when the mind rises, exists only so long as the mind exists, and vanishes when the mind sets. Therefore, is there a world apart from the mind? The five kinds of sense knowledge, and nothing else, constitute the form of the world we see. The five kinds of sense knowledge are obtained through the five sense organs. Since the one mind perceives the world through the five sense organs, say, can there be a world apart from the mind? Aladhu Narpadu, verse 6. Since the microcosm is the macrocosm, the body is the world. Without the body, the world does not exist. All that exists as the world is projected from the body. That is why Sri Bhagavan asks in verse 5 of Uladu Narpadu, "Is there anyone who without the body has seen the world?" In short, the contention of worldly people, ajnanis, is the body and world do exist in sleep, whereas the consciousness I does not exist there. But Sri Bhagavan's verdict is quite the contrary. The body and world do not exist in deep sleep, whereas the consciousness I am is experienced by all. Now, does the body really exist in deep sleep? For if the body exists in deep sleep, the world must also exist there. The world does not exist apart from the body. The body does not exist apart from the mind. The mind does not exist apart from consciousness, and consciousness does not exist apart from self, which is existence. Guru Vachaka Kovai, verse 99. Since the body cannot exist unless the mind rises, how can it exist in deep sleep, where the mind does not rise? And since the body does not exist in deep sleep, how then can the world exist there? Therefore, let us try to understand Sri Bhagavan's verdict that the body and world do not exist in deep sleep. If we say that a thing exists, that existence must be coupled with consciousness. That is, it should itself know its own existence. It should not need the evidence or help of any other thing either to know its existence or to prove its existence. For existence and the knowledge of existing, that is, existence and consciousness, sat and chit, are not two different things. To know existence, sat, there is no consciousness, chit, other than existence itself. Existence is therefore consciousness. Upadesa Undiyar, verse 23. Thus, consciousness without existence is not at all consciousness. Likewise, existence without consciousness is not at all existence. The knowledge that we slept is the evidence of our existence at that time. Do we have to ask others to know whether we slept or not? Since it is we alone who have the knowledge that we have slept, does not this very knowledge prove that we did exist in deep sleep? When our existence and consciousness, sat, chit, in deep sleep is thus undeniable, if the body and world also had such an undeniable existence and consciousness, why do they, body and world, need the evidence of others to prove their existence in deep sleep? Because the evidence of others is needed to prove that the body and world exist during deep sleep. Is it not clear that their existence is not self-evident? Since we have proved that an existence without consciousness is no existence at all, and since the knowledge that the body and world exist in deep sleep is not self-evident, we can positively assert that their existence is false. Therefore, let us conclude that the body and world do not exist in deep sleep. Thus, because no one can deny that he existed in sleep, one's own existence in sleep and the non-existence of the body there must be accepted by all. According to the following logical inference, that which seems to exist at one time and not at another time is actually non-existent even while it seems to exist. The body and world are non-existent even during the time of their seeming existence, that is during waking and dream. Many, because of their lack of maturity of understanding when first visiting Sri Bhagavan and scrutinizing the nature of reality as exposed by him and as explained above, were not able to grasp the fact and be convinced that existence, sat, and consciousness, chit, are one and the same, and therefore were repeatedly arguing with him. On the other hand, some who had discrimination and a sharp, clear intellect, not already confused by a mere study of the sastras without any practice, were fully convinced as soon as they heard Sri Bhagavan's exposition that the body and world do not exist in deep sleep, that it alone is right, Therefore, they were able to proceed along the path of inquiry, but those who did not have the maturity of intellect to be able to accept the non-existence of the body and world in deep sleep were stopped and could progress no further on the path. Knowing well that an aspirant cannot know, I am not the body, deham naham, and thereby give up his attachment to it unless he is fully convinced by his own experience, I can exist even without the body, Sri Bhagavan, while proclaiming the clarion call of Vedanta, Deham Naham Koham Soham, says in Tamil in his own words of grace, Deham Gatam Nihar, Jadamidar Kahamanum Tihajviladal, Naham Jadalamil Tuilinil, Dinamurum Namadiyalal. The body, Deham, is insentient like an earthen pot, since it does not have the consciousness I, and since our existence is experienced, as I am, daily in deep sleep where the body does not exist, it is not I, Naham. Uladu Narpadu Anubandham, verse 10. Yet some devotees of Sri Bhagavan often retort, the Sanskrit original of this verse says apeta supti samai, which means that in deep sleep the body is merely absent, removed, or unmanifest. Does this not mean that we need not accept the total non-existence of the body in sleep? Unless the aspirant's mind is well saturated with the conviction that there is no body at all in sleep, it will be given the chance to imagine that in sleep things other than the I, consciousness, namely the body and world, exist at least in some subtle form, and that in future they may evolve into some very magnificent forms. Only when this chance is given to the mind will it have room to form such meaningless theories as immortalizing the body, divinizing humanity, and heavenizing the world. Therefore, in order to clear the doubts of these aspirants, it becomes necessary to relate the following incident. The original Sanskrit verse composed by Sri Bhagavan in 1927 was as follows. Deham mrinmaya vajadat makamaham buddhir natasya stiyato naham tatadabhava supti samaya siddhatma sadbhavata, in which the precise word he used was abhava, but a devotee, Kavya Kanta Ganapati Sastri, perhaps on account of his then inability to accept the non-existence of the body in deep sleep, and believing that the body is not totally non-existent, but that it still exists in deep sleep, at least in an unmanifest apata condition, changed the text to apita supti samaye. Kavyakanta Ganapati Sastri seems to have used the phrase apita supti samaye only in the sense during sleep when the body does not appear, and not in the sense during sleep when the body has no existence whatsoever. The experience of Sri Bhagavan is it does not exist, abhava. It does exist, at least in an apatite condition, is maybe this devotee's opinion. Since there is no prosodic mistake in the original word abhava used by Sri Bhagavan, the word apita must have been substituted only because Ganapati Sastri's idea was contrary to that of Sri Bhagavan. For if the word apita gave the same meaning as abhava, where was the need for a substitution? While translating the same verse into Tamil, Sri Bhagavan has used the Tamil words jadalamil, which means that the body does not exist at all. If Sri Bhagavan had agreed with the idea conveyed by the substitution, he would have translated it accordingly. But he has confirmed his own idea, i.e., abhava, by translating only the word used in his original Sanskrit composition. The Sanskrit version, which is now in print, in all books other than Sri Ramana Hridayam, is only the substitution of the devotee and not the original of Sri Bhagavan. It is only by way of concession to the weakness of immature minds who believe that the body and world truly exist that the Sastras pacify them by saying, the creation, the body and world, once came out of God or self, Atman, It resolves into him during sleep, death, and dissolution, pralaya, and comes out again. However, these pacifying words are not the absolute truth, paramarthika satya, and hence they cannot give full satisfaction to us who are longing for and trying to know only the absolute truth. These explanations of the Sastras do not stand before the personal experience of Bhagavan Sri Ramana, the Mahaguru, who never withheld even in the least the absolute truth from anyone. Therefore, we need not take them to be his direct teaching. The same idea has been well expressed in the following verse by Sri Muruganar, the foremost disciple of Sri Bhagavan. Although Guru Ramana taught various doctrines according to the level of understanding of those who came to him, we heard from him that Ajata alone is truly his own experience. Thus should you know. Guru Vachaka Kovai, verse 100. Ajata is the knowledge that nothing, neither the world, soul, nor God, ever comes into existence, and that which is ever exists as it is. Since we exist even during sleep, when the body does not exist, we have to conclude, according to the basic test framed previously, that we cannot be the gross body, the physical body, breath, and blood circulation. Let us now consider the subtle body. Mind, which is thoughts, and intellect constitute this subtle body. We know that the mind is just a collection of thoughts. Even in the waking state, do we not sometimes have, without effort, moments of quietude when all thoughts subside? Do we cease to exist during those thought-free periods? No. Even then, we do exist. However, we hear some people complain, "The whole of my waking state is full of nothing but waves and waves of thoughts, and I have never experienced the subsidence of thoughts at all." Very well, it is right to welcome and reply to their complaint. The periods in which the waves of thoughts subside of their own accord in the waking state are the state of being still, summa irital, or self-abidance, nishtha. Aspirants who have had this experience can easily grasp the truth. We can and do exist even in the absence of thoughts. Yet for the sake of those who have complained, let us scrutinize deeper. Have we not already said that of all the thoughts which arise from sleep, the first person thought, "I am the body," is the first? All other thoughts which pertain to second and third person objects multiply only by catching hold of this first thought. Even for those whose thoughts do not subside in the waking state, do not all thoughts vanish when sleep overtakes them, since the first thought, "I am the body," itself subsides at that time? Thus, doesn't every one of us have access to the thought-free state in dreamless sleep? There we are not non-existent. Even in sleep, where there is no ego, I, we are not non-existent. Upadesa Undiyar, verse 21, says Sri Bhagavan. So, according to our basic test, since we exist even in the absence of the mind, we are not the mind. Further, in the same manner as this "I am the body" consciousness, dehatma buddhi, clings to the gross body as I, it can also cling in a subtle way to many other bodies. For instance, when the gross body is inactive, is not the mind working? Dream is one such case. It is an example of our taking a subtle body. During dream, the mind, as if it had taken another gross body, functions and knows many things through that body. This dream body is simply a mental projection. It is nothing but the mind itself. So it can also be called the subtle body. But do we not exist in dreamless sleep? Therefore, since we can exist even without this dream body, we can clearly understand that it is not I. We should not think that the mind thus functions with a subtle body only in dream. Even in the waking state, do we not daydream? At that time also, the same phenomenon takes place. Suppose we sit, not sleeping, and imagine that we travel to a far-off country, meet a friend there, talk with him, and undergo all the ups and downs of life. At that time, the body with which we seem to go, come, talk, and so on, is also a subtle body of ours. We know that these subtle bodies which we thus take now and then are transient. When we wake up from dream, the dream body is gone. In the same manner, the body assumed in daydream also becomes false, non-existent. That is, these bodies are false forms which come on us and go. Thus we can conclude that we exist even in the absence of these bodies. Therefore, they are not we. Now, if we scrutinize further, we will find that we have another kind of body even subtler than the subtle body. Here also, to support this, each one of us has his own experience, namely dreamless sleep. At that time, we have neither the gross nor subtle body. The mind having completely subsided, we sink at rest in total darkness, knowing nothing. When the mind rises again from this darkness, either dream or waking results. When we wake up from deep sleep, we remember our experience thus: I slept happily and did not have any dream. That is, we know that we existed even in that state of seeming darkness in which there was not even a dream. That dark state is called the causal body. We who know that we knew that we existed there is the real I. The reason for saying here that there is a causal body still existing in sleep, and that the darkness of sleep itself is its form, that according to the experience of Sri Bhagavan, the body and world exist in no form at all in deep sleep. But for the time being, let us proceed on the assumption of ordinary people that sleep is a defective and mean state. In deep sleep, the ego, ahankara, the mind in the form of attachments, is still alive in the very subtle form of tendencies, vasanas. It is this form which is that base and cause for the rising of the subtle and gross bodies, and therefore it is called the causal body. Even in death, it is in this causal body that we exist. This causal body is not destroyed by the death of the gross body. The reason for asserting that even this causal body is not I is that we exist there to know even that state to be alien to us. There, our existence alone is real, and we cannot be the form, darkness, or ignorance which we assume there. Just as we rejected the gross body of the waking state as I am not this body, even though it appeared to be I, and just as for the same reason we rejected the subtle body of the dream state as not I, let us now also reject this causal body, darkness, or ignorance of deep sleep as not I, since it is only a form which comes on us and goes. Therefore, having firmly eliminated all these three bodies as not I, what then remains? That knowledge, the consciousness, chit, of our existence, sat, alone is I. Can we eliminate these three bodies? Certainly we can, because they are only our sheaths and are extraneous to us. From what is extraneous to us, we can separate ourselves. It is within our ability. Only when we thus separate ourselves from these sheaths, which are extraneous to us, will we know our true nature, according to the truth which we have already established, namely that our true nature itself is happiness. Knowing our true nature is itself experiencing perfect happiness. Thus, the experience of self-knowledge, Atma Swarupanubhava, is the very pinnacle of happiness. It is the ultimate goal for which all living beings are knowingly or unknowingly searching through all their innumerable endeavors, attaining, through the inquiry, who am I? The knowledge, chit, of our reality, sat, as the perfect happiness, ananda, is the supreme goal of mankind. The sole cause of all miseries is the mistake of veiling ourselves by imagining these sheaths to be ourself, Even though we are ever this existence consciousness bliss, Sat Chit Ananda,